The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Get ready to find your free will from your roots in the stars.
Well, hello. This is Sue Rose Minahan, and on Talk Cosmos, December 15th, 2018. And we are completing the last of 4 conversations about Sagittarius. Sagittarius, that archetype, is ruled by Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, which is not one of the personal planets, but a planet that is one of our interpersonal planets, we might call, and it's of our philosophies. It is of our belief systems. It could be say we are our belief systems. There are many aspects that we've talked about over the last few weeks. Last week was about publishing. The week before that was about travel. Tonight, we're discussing another realm of the higher mind, of the expansion, which is really Sagittarius. And it's about law, because it is those perceptions, it's that voice, it's our attitudes, our sense of truth, what we're really seeking. That's the science of law. That is that, again, that remote sense. It's not the accountability of the next house of Capricorn, where we have rulership and authority over us. So this is where we're discussing our domain of thought and in the science of law. Tonight, our guest, who has been here before, she's a repeat guest, Shannon Hayes from Seattle, an astrologer of the evolutionary concept, such as myself, which is soul growth, and a student of Maurice, not just a student, but certified by Maurice Fernandez, who is the president of OPA, which is Organization for Professional Astrologers. Shannon's an entrepreneur. She is a hairstylist, has her own salon. She is an animal activist, a photographer, and active on Instagram often, does consultations. And you can find out information how to get a hold of Shannon by going to Talk Cosmos, the website. So tonight I'll say, hello, Shannon. Here we are.
Hi, Sue. Nice to be on here to talk with you again.
It is indeed. Last time was our opposite, which was in Gemini.
I know.
Yes. There we were communicating about the nature of the environment, our neighborhoods. But this time it's about the big conceptual thoughts that we really derive. And right now, Sagittarius, well, Jupiter rules Sagittarius. It's in its own sign. And when it comes to law, you brought up a very interesting concept, because if we look back at history, there's times that we can learn from. I mean, Sagittarius does want to look ahead. It's a visionary sign. But the fact that we're devising our thoughts about how we're going to construct in the next house, our laws, our government, might say, you were in a conversation going back to the early 70s when Neptune was in Sagittarius.
Right. And what else? There was like a stellium, right?
Yes, in 1971.
Right. There was that stellium and Sagittarius, and I was on the internet looking around, like, just when we were discussing, this topic about laws, and I just happened to come across the whole Ferdinand Marcos regime, and how interesting it was that he basically ruled from I think was 1972 1972 to like 1986 or something. But from what was it, 1972 to like 1981 or 82? I can't remember what the exact dates we're talking about, right?
Well, I think what you had mentioned was that he actually started in 1965.
Right, the whole concept, the vision, right? The vision of the Philippines being under a dictatorship was the plan had started. It was festering in 1965, and by December 30th, 1972, he had declared martial law, and as he was supposed to be leaving his two-term presidency, he declared martial law and was dictator for several more years after that. Yeah. But it was like his vision, like he had this vision and he managed to do it, which was what was so interesting. And he did it using, it was actually called Opland Sagittarius. Yes. Which is really fascinating, and right, and this is what we were talking about, and all of these like planets in Sag. I mean, the whole thing was so crazy, right? And basically, what he did was he made this proclamation, and then
that was in 71,
right?
I think you said it was July 23rd, 1971. It was in a newspaper called the Free Press. Yeah. Very ironic, because it was totally the opposite. Right. Declaring his martial law idea, that if that's how he was going to protect people, you said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it was, yeah, exactly. So in January 23rd, 1971, the issue of the Philippines Free Press magazine described a method for imposing martial law, and then it was imposed more than a year later.
Yes.
So, right. So basically what he did was he managed to basically take over the government, right? And he put under house arrest judges, reporters, anybody that was against him, right?
Yeah, all the military, you said.
And
the Free Press. He had that vision, is what you were bringing out, was that this vision of, and systematically implementing it through these ninth house Sagittarius ideas, when there were 5 planets. We noticed, there was Mars conjunct Neptune conjunct Jupiter, and of course Jupiter rules Sag, and they were all in Sag. There were no boundaries for those folks that aren't astrologers. It was when Mars and Jupiter get together, there's a lot of impetus, and there's the how can we say that Sagittarius it's a wonderful sign. It's generous, it's big, but the problem is that if one doesn't have any checks and balances and just pushes their agenda,
right, it can be total inflation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, his whole ideas, the whole thing was just kind of fascinating because of the fact that this whole thing was called Opland Sagittarius, which is how I even got onto this. And then I started reading about it, and I'm going, oh my God, this is like so crazy, because I had no idea. And that he basically, when he set this up, he distributed different copies of this proclamation to different military people that were in support of him, and he took the first letter of each one of these people's last names and basically associated a zodiacal archetype with it. So this major proclamation, this Opland Sagittarius, actually went to this General Solomon, right? So S for Solomon and Sagittarius, right? So Marcos had carefully planned this whole project, right? So that if someone tried to turn on him, he'd be able to take immediate action. So, I mean, you see that, like, that all of those planets and Sag and the Mars and the Neptune and like, I mean, just like,
It is
I don't know.
something to be careful about because it's
Yeah.
really a perfect example of Sagittarius running away, and in a country where there isn't the middle class of that has some kind of personal power. You know, they were impoverished, I believe, and impoverished.
Yeah.
You know, there was a wide discrepancy between the classes. But the fact that he systematically imposed the people around him that were totally supportive of him, it's a tremendous example of Sagittarius running away. And right now, the same, you know, we learn from history. And again, we have Sagittarius in, or not Sagittarius, but
We have
Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Sag. So,
Right.
And yeah, when it comes to law, if the media is also ruled by ninth house because it's anything with mass communications. It's very important that we protect, or that we, by protecting, I think that we all voice our opinions, because that is the birth of concepts.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. You know, I mean, it's the dissent that helps keep checks and balances. You know, it's like in a situation where you have like all this runaway Sagittarian energy that they had, like, you know, in the 70s when this was all going down in the Philippines. You know, as the Philippines, I think at that time was like, I mean, it was pretty third world like in a lot of respects. So, you know, it was another one of these situations where he managed to kind of con people into believing that, you know, he was going to save them. You know, it's that messianic complex that can happen with all that Sagittarian with being unchecked, you know, like.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the old adage of setting them up to knock them down, which is if you bowl, which I don't bowl much, but you set up the pins and then you don't take your bowling ball and you knock it down. So it's something where we all have that personal sense of truth is important. We're in a time right now where can be aggravating listening to somebody else's sense of truth. But it's very important because all these ideas that are coming forth eventually make up those laws that are in with the government. And we're in like that incubation time. It's perpetual, but it's so important. For instance, I think you're going to a conference that's going to be about the galactic center. And the galactic center, I may say, is 27, 28 degrees Sagittarius. And it happens to be the centaur is the zodiac symbolic symbol of Sagittarius. And it's not quite clear whether it's the archer. Well, it is an archer. It's where the centaur, which is a half man on a horse, is pulling back on his arrow. And the arrow is pointed at the galactic center, which is 27, 28 degrees Sagittarius. So it's like we're all aiming towards our truth, which happens to be that point in the Milky Way, which is the incubator of the stars. There's like a bunch of nebula that are there, which is, again, I'm many times we can thread back to this, but it is that sense of us incubating our opinions, our patterns of thought, the remote, the beyond.
Right, the visions, right? It's
yes.
like the visionary. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's like totally fascinating.
Yeah. In fact, yeah, when is that conference of the Galactic Center? I think
that it is the end of, I think it's the end of January, first week in February.
It's going to be down in Mexico, I think.
Right, in Shishim.
And is that through a particular group? Or I know Maurice is there and Gemini Brett.
Right,
a
and
bunch of others.
owner Dosher, Ursula,
That's Ursula Stockner of
uh-huh,
Mexico,
yep,
and owner
and
of Turkey. It's quite cosmopolitan, just like
right,
Sagittarius.
Sagittarian,
Yeah,
right? It's like all the people from all over, right? It's a galactic gathering.
but that arrow is pointed to Antares, which is the heart of a scorpion, although it's 9 degrees Sagittarius. So if anybody has
Right.
9 degrees Sagittarius in their charts, or wherever 9 degrees is in their chart, or 27, 28 degrees Sagittarius, are significant. One is the fixed star, Antares, which is on the ecliptic, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and Antares is a fixed star, isn't it?
Taurus. It's the 15th brightest star in the night sky and the brightest star of the constellation, I think it's Scorpius. Is that what they
Yes,
call
it's
it?
in Scorpius, although
Mm-hmm.
it's 9 degrees Sagittarius. I don't
Right.
think it is a royal star. No, there's only 4 royal stars.
No, it's not a
No,
royal
it
star,
is
but
because it's in
or it could be.
Scorpio. Yes,
Oh,
it is. It is a
yes, it is.
scorpion because there's four. There's the fixed stars, which is Leo, Scorpius, uh, um, Cancer, and Lib and fixed Taurus. You know, they're all the fixed.
Yeah, it's a bright star, so
it's somehow the significance of bringing the heavens to earth, which is really, when we consider the centaurs, half man, half humanity, and then the wildness of the animal, the nature, the horse.
right.
You know, it is a matter of that distance of the heart of the scorpion, because the scorpion is one of the symbols of Scorpio, which is the previous sign of the death and rebirth process. And it's interesting that Scorpio wants to find the truth. You know, it perishes one evolutionary development to rebirth into another phase. And when you get to Sagittarius, it's finding that truth. It's not just the truth of something, but what is truth.
Right. Exactly. What is truth?
Yeah. That's where we can't let one vision overtake. It is important. As much as we think, any of us or anyone might think globally or nationally that their vision is correct, it is this collage.
Oh, absolutely, because everyone has their own sense of truth, you know. Truth is definitely, it's like, you know, your truth can be different than mine, you know, what makes you work and what makes you click. You know, we all have our own kind of motivating factors and visions, right?
Yes. And how we consider, well, this is astrologically speaking, but what is the sign on the 9th house? There's 12 houses. So the 9th house is above in the collective sphere. For those that need to know, I mean, that are not astrologers, just generally speaking.
Right, it's above the horizon, right? It's in the third, like, quarter.
Yes, quadrant.
Yeah, the third quadrant.
Which there are 4 of. But so the sign on that house is how we look for our truth, or look for how we might consider our philosophy, how we might see God. Because in a lot of ways, it's not that, I mean, other houses like 12th house in a sense is the universal all, but in the 9th house at that stage of our development, because this is a systematic growth, you know, of developmentally taking all of the cosmos and setting it into these departments that we can begin to work with. But that's where so it matters how we might think about things. Like if Aries is there, we're going to be much more full of initiative and promoting our ideas on or instrumenting, like for adventure, for instance. Yes.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and and it can also be the kind of thing where you can be a little over exuberant, or kind of foot in the mouth syndrome kind of thing, if you're looking at it from a shadow side too, because it could be one that reacts, because it's all that fire energy too. So Aries is the fire energy, right? And the Sagittarian is fire energy, and Sagittarian naturally is optimistic. It's like it is the most joyful sign of the zodiac. And so, yeah, I mean, it can be like a total train wreck and a runaway train kind of situation where, it'll just keep going and doesn't know when to put the brakes on, per se, I guess.
I like that idea, though, that you reminded me about faith, because really that ties in. If we don't have faith that our ideas are going to work, I mean, somehow we need to be buoyed up that there is a vision to work, to promote, to go forward in. Otherwise, a dreams, like
right.
a journey. So from that standpoint, it's so necessary. I mean, granted, we can fall on our face, or it can not work out, but then we can try again, like the old adage, try again. I think Aries wants to prove it itself. And then if it's Taurus, it's that urge for personal values, to figure out through traveling that things that they manifest. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's a way of manifesting like your ideas and philosophies and visions, like could be even like, thoughts, making thoughts concrete.
Yes.
And, in a way, like you said, like manifesting, it's also like, it also has a lot to do with the body. So, with the second house. So it could be ways of using the body in ways of, like for teaching or, whatever, athletics even, I mean, Sagittarian also was an athletic. It tends to be, I mean, I know Virgo mostly is athletics, but Sagittarian is also, it's
absolutely.
It's the Aries. Archer and the horse, yeah. Right? Yeah, and Aries also.
It's adventurous.
Right, it's adventurous, exactly.
Yeah. So then if a person, because they want practicality, that's the other thing too. Because
practicality.
If it's Gemini, there's always the mind. It wants to go looking forward, and in a sense, maybe a little bit more of a tourist, because it's trying to get understand the navigating the areas. And in Cancer, it really gets, people are thinking of fundamentally what is self, like what is one's roots, like maybe traveling to see how it relates to their psyche, their deep emotion.
Or family origin.
Yes.
Right.
Tradition. Yes.
Right. And I mean, that could be like the trip you take, like to like wherever your family originated from. Like my brother and I took a trip to Ireland, right?
We did too. Yes.
Yeah. And that's where my grandfather was born. Yeah.
It was very exciting. It's true. And having some kind of reason why. It's so interesting. So we're mentioning this just to folks. If you look at your 9th house, you might have a little bit of an idea that it makes a difference why you might travel, or why you might think about your philosophies, or that for a reason that we have our emphasis on what matters to us. I mean, essentially everybody has the same needs in many respects, but yet how we apply them, it does make a difference. And especially if we're voicing our opinions about things, or reaching out further, that's why we're bringing this forth. And Leo, well, as it said, Leo is a great joy. Leo is takes great pride, perhaps, in their journeys and wants pleasure.
Right. What they create, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Are you here?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry
This is
about
what you
that.
Travel. Travel is most interesting. It's like, where are we? We're here, yet we're there. We can travel. It's so amazing. Like, we are actually traveling across the water, very much like Sagittarius. So,
right?
Yeah, different realities.
Right. It's so Sag, right? It's Sag Gemini. It's like carrying out, like having a Skype conversation from Seattle to Hawaii.
Yes. Yeah.
Love it.
If we go into Virgo wants practical aims. They want tools, they want methods, processes, techniques. And I'm getting this partly from Alan Oken. Alan Oken is a great astrologer.
Oh.
Yeah, and he has houses of the horoscope. So he's saying that they're always at school and studying. And Libra, now this is when we want to meet people because it is the other person. So Libra would say, well, are they actually how connected, almost like being married to their beliefs? That's pretty strong when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. Break time.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Sagittarius, ruled by the largest of all planets, Jupiter, the Roman god, or Zeus by the ancient Greeks. By leaving a cycle based on power and powerlessness of life and death and regeneration, involving committed relationships, Sagittarius energy finds meaning for an expanded perspective and potential for actualization in their search for truth. As a mutable fire sign depicted by the centaur, Sagittarius is adventurous and seeks the beyond. Sagittarius travels to far places, physically and mentally, to find the truths of life.
Celebrate your star energy blessings. Schedule a natal astrology chart consultation with Talk Cosmos host Sue Rose Minahan. You'll learn to better understand what personally fuels your soul's seed direction. Sue focuses on your questions to connect you into your unique heart's desire and your true soul path's birth essence, including a recording and a copy of your chart. Schedule by emailing info@talkcosmos.com. That's info@talkcosmos.com.
Hello, this is Wendy Wyrot, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk, 1150 AM, where we unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconscious.
Want to hear something different from talk radio? Keep your dial on Alternative Talk 1150.
Hello, Sue Rose Minahan and Shannon Hayes, December 15th, 2018, discussing Sagittarius law, the concepts of law, our entire mental frame. And we ended with, on the 9th house, which rules these areas, we were discussing the different signs that it makes a difference, how we might approach our thinking patterns of the remote higher mind, that Sagittarius is the centaur points its arrow out there to the galactic center, looking for the incubated stars, you might say, and our own thought processes. So Scorpio has very deep connections and convictions. It really wants to understand the crisis and revolves around the need to redefine the truth and philosophy. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it wants to dig deep, and you know, it is a truth-seeking combination.
And letting go constantly of what doesn't live and work.
Right.
It's relentless, and that's the gift and beauty. And it's a very intense sign, but it would want truth desperately almost. There is an obsession, I would think. And Sagittarius, oh, there we go with the fire, the enthusiasm, and
right, the optimism and the vision,
expanding. Right? Yes.
Yep.
And wanting the law. You might say, in every respect, it is the epitome of travel and of breadth and of, well, we just brought out the fact of Neptune back there in 71 as an indication when Neptune for 7 years and its orbit was in Sagittarius. There's no, in a sense, it relates very much to Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is in its home base. But then at that time, Neptune doesn't have any boundaries, so it was just free reign.
Right. This is a wild card.
Yeah, the quest to know and to grow. And so really people there are really going to need to voice their opinions and thoughts and publish or choose their philosophies, you know, of what their beliefs are. And when you come to Capricorn, we're closing in now on the last quarter, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, it's responsibility. That's where things get put into form. There's a goal.
Right. And there's goals, and it's, you know, laws and concepts that also have a lot to do with like constructing governments and societies and you know, corporations. Like you were saying, they're the as you might call them, more transpersonal kind of archetypes, right?
Yes, because it's collective, the whole
right.
of us as we evolve forward. And of course, right now, the nodes, which are points, but that are collective point that we're actualizing, where we're coming from as a whole global society for the next 18, 17 months, because it's an 18-month period, is South Node in Capricorn. We're all focused on these goals and these ambitions and achievements.
Oh, absolutely. And where we're going as, you know, as a country too. I mean, you can look at it country by country. It's like, you know, where is our country headed right now? You know, we have all corporations running our country pretty much, and democracy as we knew it is crumbling and changing, you know, and it's, you know, what's going to be next, right? It kind of, you know, it's kind of like what happened in the Philippines, you know, it's like, although you see the signs, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen the same way. I'm not saying that at all, but
Exactly.
But you see the changes, right?
Well, that's the warning, and that's where we learn from history, and that's why everybody knows that. And well, I say everybody, it's said frequently, but why? It's because there are these cycles, there are these reminders, and that is the gift of astrology, is that it can open up some vistas, just like a science, to say, yes, there was, like for instance, a hydrangea. It either goes pink or it goes blue, depending on the acidity of the soil. So we have to look at society, and we say, we're in this energy zone of coming to terms with our conceptual belief structures of the higher mind through with cultures and through distant visions.
Well, yeah, and with different, like how, and also it ties in with the whole immigration thing, and like you said, with different cultural imprints, and how that also influences things. I mean, it influences everything, and you see like the cycles, the nodes in the Cancer and Capricorn has a lot to do with like cycles of time, right? Which also can correlate with, these all the different concepts that are being raised right now in this period of time.
And it goes right back to your first example of the Philippines, that when Marcos ended martial law was in 1981, when the nodes went from, they left, when was it? It was in the Sagittarius. Well, they went to Sagittarius, but they had been in Capricorn, just like now. So it's most interesting that really that whole energy is an equal sign of authority versus personal processing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it was a time when, martial law was put in, and the Philippines was taken over, and then authoritarian by an authoritarian dictator, right, who imposed his vision. I mean, it's just so classic. Like,
we have to be careful in this world. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's careful. We need to use this energy and realize that our ninth house has such great virtue to give us. It's our third fire sign. We don't have another fire sign before the end of the cycle. And it is with this idea that we need to have our matters of expression. We need our televisions, we need our newspapers, we need books, we need our courts. It rules our courts.
Right.
We need that check and balance system that we have in this country. We need
our societal freedoms, that help to create a more balanced society.
So then Aquarius in the ninth house really is, from what Alan Oken, as a great mentor, astrologer, and you spell Oken to give Alan his proper due honor, is O-K-E-N, Alan. And he is saying that it's experimental curiosity, that it wants to explore these beliefs of other cultures. And that's very true. I think there's the idea that the oneness begins, the universality and the humanitarianism begins to be very important in how all these attitudes go forward.
Oh, absolutely. It's about communities and, the coming together of different people from all different walks of life, to make things better, to learn how to live together, to find common denominators and things,
Because, yes, thank you. Pisces, to conclude the 12 archetypes, that is really about the idealism, compassion. It's very much where it's devoted to a deep understanding about life on the spiritual journey.
Right. It's about faith, having faith and optimism that things are going to work. It's having trust in life.
Yeah. So, in many respects, the ninth house, it's interesting how, because if something is joyous, which all the fire signs have great exuberance and they're intuitive. We can sometimes overlook, maybe because they don't get in our way and make it stinky in some ways. We can think that maybe they're just zealous and overlook it. But it is really a powerful connection. It's a mutable sign. And those mutable signs are very strong when it comes to formulating the new action ahead.
Oh, absolutely, because it is about change. It's about being in motion. It's, movement. The fire energy doesn't want to be stagnant. It doesn't want to have boundaries.
I just love how you tie things up. It's just great. You too, Shannon.
So funny.
Well, the galactic center, I'm fascinated by the galactic center. And I wonder if it's because in my own chart, I have Uranus and Venus conjunct. Now, people that are not astrologers might wonder what that is, but that's your attraction. I mean, first of all, in mythology, they're rather connected because, well, they are connected. But the point is, it's at 29 degrees Gemini, so it's the opposite by 2 degrees of the galactic center. So it's like peering across my chart, wondering really what it is. So for me, it would be the galactic center would be in my 3rd house. And I was noticing in an article, the galactic center in your astrology chart by house. And it says here that it resonates with cutting edge technology, but also out of the box thinking, quantum thinking, which is so true because it's sort of eclectic connections from every direction. I definitely follow that.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
And that cosmic ideas that need to be shared to jumpstart the creative process. And last, that the need to communicate, like radio. Here we are.
I know, that's what I was just going to say. And there you are with your radio show. I love it. It's like so true.
Now,
I think that's awesome.
Yes, it is. I know when it, and that's where astrology just continually reminds, as you study it, how amazing it is that it connects. And there is this free will. I mean, obviously, we all have our search for truth. Now, what house would it be in you? What house is the galactic center? 27, 28 degrees. You have Leo.
I have Pluto in Leo, the 28th degree, but I don't have let's see.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, your rising sign is?
My rising is just, it's like, well, it depends on the house, but it's like 2 degrees Leo.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and I have Pluto and Leo at 28, right? In the second house. I have my Venus is close to the opposite of the galactic center. My Venus is 25 Gemini.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And your Gemini is in which house? So in other words,
it's in the 11th house.
Okay, so in other words, it's your 5th house. Your galactic center is in the 5th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in the 5th house. Yeah, I have Saturn and Sag at 10 degrees.
Well, I'm sorry to ponder, because here it says that involved with helping out children, embody paradigm. Yes, and creativity for benevolence and the spirit of play and having fun.
Well, I mean, that definitely does fit, though, because I do work. My business is in an assisted living facility, and a lot of the people in that facility have dementia and Alzheimer's. So they actually are like children in a lot of ways, And they're fun, they're They can be fun and silly, just like kids. And yeah, I mean, a different kind of kid.
Well, that goes so well with having, that's another part of astrology. When you think about it, it goes so well with one's chart. Like for me, if I have it in my third house, I'm a Gemini, even though my sun is in the ninth house, which is the opposite. I know people that are not astrologers are going, whoops, what did you do? What did you say?
Okay, right.
It's the polarities, but yet it's strongly emphasized. It's another shade. It's as though if you're having a room that's decorated, you might have a certain color sort of accented and it pulls it all together. That's maybe one way of putting it in just layman terms. But for you too, if you have Leo, which is fifth house, that's a strong emphasis. So it's almost as though our galactic center, just between the two of us, you might say is one more indication that's trying to unify our chart, that's trying to pull together, because what the galactic center, which is 27, 28 degrees, which is the center of the Milky Way, which is where the archer is pointing his arrow towards Antares, the heart of the scorpion, which is 9 degrees Sag, which is in mythology many points of maybe looking at truth as far as what works and doesn't. And I know that's a bit abstract perhaps, but rather than get carried away about the mythology of it. But the fact is that that those degrees of 26, 27 degrees of Sagittarius is about freedom and truth and connecting. And that's how we connect our freedom and truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good correlation. I like that.
So I think it'll be fascinating to find out through your Instagram about how the conference, yeah,
the conference goes. Yeah, I know. Well, it's so interesting too, because talk about ninth house and the Sagittarius archetype. There's also going to be Don Marzo, who didn't you met
yes.
Don Marzo, right? The last Mexico trip.
A shaman.
Right. Yeah.
I still wear the ring he made.
Right. And Don Marzo is going to be there too, where they're also going to be doing, ritual.
What's interesting, one more factor about Sagittarius in the ninth house, because next week will begin Capricorn. And in fact, next week, I might say to my audience, to the wonderful audience that is out there that does enjoy listening and that I'm so grateful for, is that it'll be on the solstice, which is when, Sagittarius, interestingly, is that time when in the Northern Hemisphere, less light, as we well know in Seattle.
Right.
And the days are getting so small as far as light goes. And yet on the solstice is when for 3 days it's stationary. The sun is in that, doesn't change the light on Earth, as far as our orbital pattern as we go. But then it begins to increase. And so it is that light here in Sagittarius that has hope and faith that the light will return. There's a lot of that energy that's spoken about, on an esoteric level of Sagittarius. So that next week will be the solstice, which is the least light, and it happens to be on that day, the 22nd, I think, 21st, 22nd. And we don't have a speaker as of yet, but if you look on Talk Cosmos, that'll be evident. Some people have their needs, because it is a Capricornian time, and the people involved suddenly had a lot of responsibilities, which I thought is interesting. How, once again, the archetypes speak up in our daily life, and that's really what it's about. So this whole thought that I'm trying to present is that the ninth house is also a cadent house. There's like the angular house, the succeedent house and the cadent house. And the cadent house is just before the angles. And the angles, for those that don't know, for astrology are 2, because that's what an angle is. Yes, it's like a cross. And one is the horizon of Earth with the light, and the other is the meridian. So the point is that this mutable house is, it was saying that a lot of that people with planets in different, the ninth house among the other houses just before the angles, which are cardinal, are really important, because if you have Mars in there, in that house, that it could be physicians or military leaders, sport champions, and executives. If it's Jupiter, it could be actors, playwriters, politicians, military leaders, top executives, or journalists. And if it's Saturn, it's scientists and physicians. And if it's the moon, they're writers and politicians. I think the moon with writers, because it's all about stories and our emotions.
Right.
So it's an important
Interesting.
house.
Yeah.
And the reason also is it was relating that it's because is that energy just after the changing of the light. You know, astrology really on that esoteric level. Did you study with Alan Oken?
No, I didn't. No, but when I was working at Norwalk, I actually I got to listen to some of his lectures because I recorded him.
Oh.
But I've never studied with him. Did you study with him?
No, I haven't either. I think
he's an esoteric astrologer, right?
Yes, which is, once again, it's almost like learning a new language, although
right.
And I understand.
Well, and it's so ninth house, right?
Oh, which gets me back to the fact that language, in some ways, the fact that there's foreign languages. I mean, language is really more third house, I guess, but on the other way, language teaches or illustrates concepts, just like astrology is language.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It's expressing concepts, opinions, ideas, larger concepts. It's not the linear concepts of Gemini, it definitely is larger concepts.
Yes, which gets to that quantum, goes back to my third house, galactic center in the third house. Well, I trust it's going to be an amazing year. This next year for Sagittarius, it can't be overemphasized. Jupiter is in Sagittarius. Once every 12 years it goes around. So...
And it'll be interesting.
Yeah, with big visions. And right now,
yeah,
we have.
We got some big visions coming, don't we?
Yeah, I love big visions, but gotta think big first. They always say for manifestation, just let them loose. Then later, think of little ways in order to implement them. It's the macro and the micro.
Good, it's Sag Gemini.
Yeah, it is a connecting field. But it is important to realize that we can't just let others take the course, that we all have the right to our free thoughts, to our sense of truth, because right now Mars and Neptune are conjoined and they are squaring, which means that there's a lot of tension with this thought process. And you can see it globally, you can see it nationally. And it is important for us to recognize that our voices are important. So,
exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. If you have something, otherwise we need to let people know that you can check anything about Shannon Hayes, along with all our guests, at Talk Cosmos, which is online, with our guests and our archives for any of our talks. And that next week on December 22nd, as we approach the Capricorn will be with a new archetype. But do you have a closing before we sign off?
No, I think I'm good. I just want to thank you again for inviting me back. I always enjoy our conversations, and I love your show. So I appreciate being offered a spot. Thank you very much.
Well, indeed. You're an activist of the mind, and I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon Hayes.
Thank you, Sue Rose Minahan.
Till again.
Thank you for listening to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 6 p.m. to continue finding your roots in the stars.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.
To be your best every day, you need proven quality sleep every night. Science proves your best sleep is vital to your mental, emotional, and physical health. And that's where the Sleep Number bed comes in. And let me tell you, ever since I've had it, my sleep IQ score is just going higher and higher. And did you know 8 out of 10 couples say that one of them sleeps too hot or too cold? Science tells us regulating your sleep temperature leads to higher quality sleep. For many couples, temperature struggles are a real challenge. So here are some tips to help you both sleep just right. Look for beds designed with temperature benefits, such as the new Sleep Number Climate 360 Smart Bed that actively warms and cools each side so you both sleep blissfully comfortable. And now save 40% on the Sleep Number 360 Special Edition Smart Bed, plus special financing for a limited time. Only at Sleep Number stores or sleepnumber.com/podcast1. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the National Football League. Subject to credit approval, minimum monthly payments required. See sleepnumber.com for details.